Hey, what is up, everyone? I am Joe, the host. I'm the host of Beyond the Woodline. Real quick before we get started, I like to always talk about what I've got going on. One of those things that I do have going on is I am the executive director of the JRG, which stands for the Jevning Research Group, headed up and founded by Mr. William Jevning. He's a really, really great guy. This guy's got over 50 years of experience in the Bigfoot world. Uh, he was friends with Renee DeHenden and John Green when he was a teenager. And if you don't know Will, man, go check him out. He's got his own podcast called Creek Devil. Really good guy and really takes a no nonsense kind of approach to this Bigfoot subject. So you'll get some really cool information, and he's got really cool guests himself. So go check him out. And then the group is Jevning Research Group. We have teams in New York State, Florida, Ohio, Michigan, California. Did I say Oregon, Oklahoma? Of course, here in Texas, where I'm at, New Mexico, and I always miss a couple of other states. If you're interested in joining the team and you want to join a team that's in your state, hit me up. Let me know. We'll get you set up with them. We will vet you. We will vet them because we just don't match people together. Because unfortunately, there are some crazy people in this world. And if there's no one in your state and you just want to make your own team, or even if you just want to make your own team, you're welcome to do that too. Shoot me an email, like I said, beyond.woodline@gmail.com, and we'll get you started. And also, so this is called Beyond the Woodline, as you guys know. If you guys go to Spotify, you'll find Beyond the Woodline on Spotify. I have segments called Woodline Encounters, and those primarily deal with the witnesses who have experienced all this stuff firsthand, whether it be paranormal, or Bigfoot, or UFO. Um, so go check out those that segment called Woodline Encounters. It's really really cool, and I've got some really cool guests, and I've got some more guests lined up. I will be talking to somebody on Saturday, as a matter of fact, Bigfoot encounter in Michigan. So I got a lot going on. I forget who I talk to sometimes. What's up, Sandra? Thanks for joining the show. I forget who I talk to sometimes. I've got somebody out there that I was looking for her information yesterday and I could not find it because I just write stuff down in different notebooks and then I try to transfer that stuff over to my calendar and I got someone and I could not. I went through all my messages on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, and I don't remember who I talked to. So I hope if you're out there, you shoot me a message and say, hey, it was me. You're a death doula. That's all I'm going to say. So anyway, enough of me. I know you guys don't tune in to hear me ramble. I have with me tonight Mr. Michael. Michael, what's your last name, Michael?
My last name is actually Kopf.
Kopf. Okay, because you have it on the Newkopf, right?
So, funny story about that is my original profile was taken down by Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a friend of mine who is the host of Paranormal Verses that I'm on with,
Mm-hmm.
she created a new profile for me.
Oh,
And head of a network figured out how to get me back on
mm-hmm.
Facebook. And so we created the profile and kept the new on it as
Okay.
kind of a little joke to Facebook saying, we know you have your algorithms, but let's see how long it takes you to figure this one out.
Okay. Hmm. All right. Well, cool. If you need me to change the title, I will, because I have it under Michael Newcall.
Oh, you're fine because that's how they'll find me on Facebook.
Okay, cool, cool. Well, cool, man. Everyone with me, I have Michael Koff or Michael Newcoff on Facebook. How you doing, Michael?
I'm good. Second
Man,
appearance.
yeah, man. Thanks a lot for doing the show. I appreciate it. Um, yeah, man. If you don't mind, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what got you into this crazy subject, man.
So I'm a paranormal investigator, podcaster, and I grew up in the metaphysics. And so that means I was free of dogma, so I don't have a lot of that to unravel, but it also comes with its own little tribulations too. Is it gets confusing when I'm on investigations if I'm hearing guides or disembodied voices.
Mm,
So that's always fun to try and figure out who's talking when.
okay.
But I've been investigating now for 5 years. I've done over 100 investigations. I was a presenter at Fear Fest New Orleans 2024, so that was a fun experience.
Mhm.
And I also, oh, let's see, what else do I do? Well, I host 3 podcast shows.
Mhm.
One
Oh
is
wow.
The Energy That Surrounds Us, Tuesday nights. 3 Wednesdays a month, I do Writing Through the Unknown, which is a disclosure, esoteric type series. And 3 Thursdays, we're going to be returning shortly, is Paranormal Verses with Kel Ridley, well, actually, it's Kel Atkinson now. She got married in July. Matt Atkinson and myself will be returning, hopefully in October.
Cool, man. And what's that one about? What is that show going to be like?
Paranormal Verses is we look into the fringe of the paranormal, like portals, UFOs, stargates, equipment. But the main thrust of it is the fact that Kel and Matt are in the UK and I'm representing the US. So it's
Mhm.
kind of comparing. Sometimes we'll be like, so here we investigate this way, and
Yeah.
they share how they investigate over there, or
Mhm.
what equipment we use and why in different cases.
Are there any different techniques that they would use other than us, or?
Well, they use the same techniques, but they're a little bit different because they have a more rich history that we're hidden our history from us. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is, if you look, there were people living in the US in the BC time frame, but we're led to believe there was nobody here until Columbus and the Vikings in the, say, 14 1500s. So we have a large gap of history missing
Mhm.
from our history books.
Right. Yeah, I've always been kind of fascinated with that kind of stuff too. History, that was always one of my favorite subjects, and especially like ancient history and stuff like that. I've always loved that stuff. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the thing that's interesting is, I was talking with one of my guests, was the Phoenicians on the back of one of their coins has the Mississippi Valley in it
Oh, really? Really?
and the Mississippi River on it, but yet they tell us nobody was here. And so that's why I say, yeah, we're missing history. And majority of the copper mined for the Bronze Age
Hmm.
was up on the Mississippi River. And
Oh, wow.
I believe Indiana and some other areas where they found copper mines with equipment left there. And my guest was sharing, yeah, if you're there, the Bronze Age, people are wanting copper, and you're going to go to a copper site and mine it. But then
Right.
when we left the Bronze Age to the next age, copper wasn't as the medium. So what do? You just leave and go resource the new materials. So
Mhm.
that's why it was all left there.
Hmm. Okay. That's pretty interesting. Do you know this Jordan Rayner? Keep saying, "What you doing for Christmas?"
No, I'm not familiar with that name.
Okay. I'm fixing to kick them out because they just keep repeating themselves. Um, yeah, man. And I always find that kind of stuff very interesting too because, um, like when I was down in Mexico, we went to the pyramids down there, and the pyramids in Mexico. I don't know if you've ever been to Teotihuacan. It's outside of Mexico City, like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive. It's
I
outside of
haven't
Mexico.
been there, but I've been to Chichen Itza and I've been to Tulum.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been to Chichen Itza too. Um, but the ones in Teotihuacan, they have jade, or they found jade from China in there. You know, which is kind of a strange thing. Like how did they get the jade? from China.
Right.
Way,
And
way, you know.
yeah, and
But
the
it
fun
just
thing
showed
is
you that we got all over this country. I mean, all over this world. Yeah.
exactly, and that's one of the things I like delving into writing through the unknown is not only Jade being there, but the fact that the pyramids look very similar to the ziggurats
Right.
and other pyramids all over the planet. How, do they build similar structures
Hmm.
and have the alignments to the stars
Right.
and have all these different similarities, but they're oceans apart? And it's like, wait a minute, how, everybody can't have an idea of going, I think we're going to build to this specific constellation and we're going to move these stones and we're going to put all this here in the same outline as our neighbors over there.
Right.
It's like there's just too many similarities to say somebody didn't help.
Right. And there were several pyramids because people just think that the ones in Gaza and even the ones in Mexico, like the only ones, but there's pyramids all over the world, and a lot of these were built within the same time frame. Maybe not the same year, but within relatively the same time frame. But
Yeah,
that's another kind of strange thing too. I was watching a documentary on that, but I thought that was pretty interesting. But,
yeah,
they're not
and the fact that Egypt is not the oldest pyramids. They've actually found older ones in Bosnia.
okay in Bosnia, right? Yeah.
And the interesting thing about those is everybody questions what are the pyramids here for,
Hmm.
and a lot of people speculate energy because they're built on ley lines where they intersect, so the natural energy is supposed to be even more,
Hmm.
which is also unique because how did they all know to build there
Hmm.
over somewhere else?
Right.
And the pyramids in Bosnia are still generating energy to this day, even
Hmm.
though they were buried underground and recently started being excavated.
Hmm. So how do they know that they're generating energy? Is there some kind of equipment that they're testing that with, or
I think the gentleman, it's Dr. Sam Obsnovich is the one who discovered and is leading the way with the Bosnian pyramids. And he's got devices that he carries around that are generating, that shows there's energy. Like he's found tunnels underground connecting
right?
pyramids and there's energy flowing, but these are underground. There shouldn't be, outside of the electric field of lights lighting the way, there shouldn't be any energy there. But he's picking up energy on his equipment, and the only source could be the pyramids themselves.
Yeah, yeah. I remember reading, but not too long ago, where they had found some tunnels, some new tunnels underneath the pyramids, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's pretty cool. And really, and that's like one of my favorite places. Uh, is the pyramids in Egypt. I love that stuff. I've even had dreams about that kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah.
I
Being with
actually
it.
had the benefit of going to Egypt for a trip with a friend of mine leading a tour. And I remember being excited to see the three pyramids of Giza
Mhm.
and the Sphinx and all these, and hoping I'd be able to see them all.
Mhm.
And getting to Egypt, going to the Great Sphinx, and right above the Great Sphinx is the Giza Plateau. They're
Okay.
like right next to each other.
Mhm.
Even though when you look at books, they make everything look like desert around it. I'm like, nope, the pyramids are right behind it.
Mhm.
And then the thing that even got me more was there's 9 pyramids on Giza's plateau, but they only ever talk about 3.
Right.
And I said, how does this work? Why are these hidden? And they go, well, if you stand here and look this way. And I looked and I go, oh my God, this is the photo I've seen of the pyramids.
Right.
There's three. And they're like, yeah, it all depends on this perspective of where you take your photo.
Yeah, I say the same way in Mexico because you have the pyramids and you see the pyramids in pictures, even like from way up high, like from a helicopter view or even a drone, and they look like they're in the middle of nowhere. And realistically, if you zoomed out just a little bit more, there's actually civilization all the way around them.
Right.
Yeah, but they're still finding structures there to this day, and they're still doing digs and excavations, all in that area, which is also pretty cool too. And there's
It is.
areas where you can sit and you can talk, and people, I mean, hundreds of feet away can hear you. You know, the acoustics are crazy. It's
Oh,
so
I
crazy.
love finding those anomalies because
Yeah,
it's either you can find the anomalies where you can hear, like you're saying, several feet away, or you can find the anomalies where sound is vacant.
right. Yeah, yeah,
And you could be like 20 feet away screaming and you can't hear a single word.
right. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So, what have you been up to, man, since we last talked? Have you done any investigations, or I know you said you went to New Orleans for when you were a speaker there.
Right. And we that one was interesting, and I got to do a Q&A as my presentation with a lovely lady who her name is Shannon Michelle Collins, and she's known as never mind, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that name because she goes by Velma something, and I don't want to mess up the last name, but she's an automatic writer, poetry writer,
Yeah.
and has a book out. She might actually have two out now. But we had so much fun, just met, and we were doing Q&A, passing the mic back and forth, answering questions, and just having so much fun.
Have you ever tried that, the automatic writing?
I think I have because there are times where I'll be like writing something and time will like pass by and I have no recollection that like an hour has passed. I feel like I've been writing for like maybe 5-10 minutes. And I'll look down at what I've written and I'll be like, man, I don't even remember thinking about half of what's written here.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? And somebody was like, well, that's automatic writing. I'm like, really? I
Hmm.
always felt like it was somebody's telling you what to say and you're listening and writing and it's a different process, but apparently not.
Hmm.
Or maybe it's different for everybody.
Yeah. You know, I tried it, but this was like years ago when I was in high school, and going through the Ouija board phase as a high school kid, and we trying the automatic writing, and we were good at the scribble, but it was really hard to tell if it was like me influencing it or somebody else influencing, the pen.
Right.
So I can't really say that I did it, but I certainly messed around with it. Well, we all did, like I said, that we were going through our Ouija board phase and, you know, uh, scaring the hell out of each other that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to stay clear of those because I find it interesting watching the commercials from the 80s for it. And I'm
Mhm.
like, they really did a great job of selling this as a game without telling everyone what they're really doing.
Yeah.
And so I can't help wondering, as a paranormal investigator, as we go to different places,
Mhm.
how many of these events were brought about because someone playing the Ouija board game
Right.
there?
Exactly. Exactly. So I don't know if you're familiar with Goatman's Bridge here in Texas, up near the Dallas Fort Worth area.
Yep, been there 5 times at
Okay.
least, probably
So,
closer to 15.
so would you say that there's activity there?
To me, that's one of the interesting locations because some nights you can get a lot.
Right.
Some nights you can get virtually nothing.
Yeah.
And some
And
nights you're up there just hanging out because nothing's happening.
right. And so we also have a place called Patterson's Bridge here outside of Houston, going towards Katy, Texas. It's maybe, I don't know, like 30-minute drive from my house. Um, and like the Goatman's Bridge, I don't know about the legend. People say it's true. People say it isn't true. There seems to be more evidence saying that it's not true than it is true. But I think enough people have gone there and broke out with the Ouija boards. Probably done other kind of stuff to invoke spirits or something that now inhabits that area. And that's what I think's happened at Patterson's Road. Here, what I was talking about too. I don't think there was ever any activity there, but enough people have gone there and they've kind of created that energy now. And
Yeah.
you know,
I'm actually talking with a friend about going back to Goatman's Bridge to investigate because they painted over a lot of the stuff
mhm,
that was placed there
mhm.
and
Okay.
kind of freshened up the bridge. Like some of the splintered boards, I think, are now newer boards.
Mhm.
But the interesting thing, like you were saying, testing the claims, like the claim of driving to it,
Right.
you can't drive towards the bridge. You have to park in the parking lot and walk up to it. They have it blocked off. So I think they were tired of too many people trying that. So they were like, nope, we're gonna break that off. And I think you go through a small gate. Like you can't even get a bike through there. You'd have to lift your bike over the gate to get and then walk in and then go do your thing. It's like they
Yeah.
really were making it so you only walk in there.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess I don't blame them, for that either.
Yeah.
Um,
But the one night, you know, we were walking around there and I was with two other investigators and we were like, yeah, nothing's really happening. Should we just go home? And then someone fired a gunshot into the air.
hmm,
And I'm hoping that it wasn't a real gun because I'd hate to think where that bullet came down.
mhm,
But we, all three of us, turned and looked towards the gate in the parking lot. And as we did that, a shadow went right by us. And like I could feel it, like literally push on my shoulder a little bit
hmm.
and the air go by. And we all looked at each other, go, "You saw that, right?" And they were like, "Yeah." It's like, got shadow rushed at Goatman's.
There you go. Yeah, I've never been there, but I do want to go there. That's something I want to go check out for myself and see what happens, and see if I can pick up any kind of activity there. Uh,
The other thing that was interesting is I was with the lady investigator and she was carrying around, I forget what the equipment was called, but it was registering the electromagnetic field. And we're walking in the woods on a path and there's a road nearby, but there's no like a lot of lights or anything, so there's no wires or anything. And we're walking along and we're getting zero, and then all of a sudden it go up to like 70. And I think at one point we were looking at each other, it was like 400 to 1,000.
oh wow.
And we're like, where is this electricity coming from? We're in the middle of the woods. There's a water, like kind of river, stream to the left of us, highway to the right, but there's no lights. And we're like, where is this? And then you take a few steps and it'd go even higher. And then you'd hit a certain point
Hmm,
and it goes right back to zero. And
right.
we were like, what? And then you turn around and you try to find if it was going back and it wouldn't be there again as or this wouldn't be as high. And it's like, and it's like you gotta think, investigation mode going, was that residual energy of something we ran into and by walking through it we kind of used up some so it's lower, or why, what's creating and why is it here and what's manipulating it?
Hmm, yeah. So I want to get your opinion on this. So when I went out to that Patterson Road, and I went out there with a friend of mine named David. We met each other out there. We parked and we got out, and there was like nothing happened. Every now and then, because we had an EMF, that stun gun would just go off, and it was weird because we would raise our hand and it would go off, you know. Um, and in this one area where we're standing almost in the middle of the bridge, he's like, "Hey, do you feel a breeze right here, right?" And there was no wind that day. It was pretty dead. It was pretty hot and humid. Um, so I went stood by where had his hand, and I put my hand there, and you could feel this little breeze. It was, I don't know, maybe a foot or so long, maybe a little bit longer than a foot, but that was about as long as this breeze was, and it just felt like a fan that was like on low, just this little breeze in this crazy little area, and I don't know, we couldn't explain it. Couldn't explain. First time I had ever experienced anything like that.
Yeah,
You know.
and what's interesting, you bring that up, and I love that you brought that up, is on my show, I had a meteorologist trained scientist on
Mhm.
who does mediumship with animals and I think sometimes humans. But I was asking him about that very thing is, cold spots, because he goes, you know what a cold spot is, right? I was like, I've experienced it, but I never really thought about it. And he goes, the spirit, or he calls them beings or spirits, not ghosts, because he's got a different definition of what's what. But he said what they're doing is by being there, trying to generate enough energy amongst themselves to make themselves known.
Mhm.
So they're sucking in the heat from that area, trying to use that as energy to do whatever, to speak or make themselves known.
Hmm.
And so, what happens when you take the heat out of an area? It becomes cold
Right.
and the
Hmm.
temperature drops. And I was like, now every time I hit a cold spot, I'm like, I get a little like spidey sense going, okay, is this somebody next to me or is this just nature going by through its thing?
Mhm.
And so I would say if it was only like you were describing a foot wide,
Mhm.
we all know wind does not just start and stop in a foot. Wind is going to go. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I would definitely say you and your friend had a guest
Hmm.
very close to you trying to make itself known.
Yeah. 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 And I was thinking, when as you were talking about taking the heat, those bridges, especially it's old concrete bridge, they hold a lot of heat. So that might have made sense too. Man, I need to get me a thermal. I wonder if a thermal would have helped me out that night. Yeah, that's what I need to get. Do you have a thermal yourself?
I had for my old cell phone a thermal adapter, and I didn't use it as much because I could have the thermal on there for like half an hour taking photos and or a video,
Hmm.
and the battery on my phone would be like nearly dead. So it's like,
Oh.
and I couldn't plug it into a battery pack because the battery pack and the FLIR shared the same port. So it was like, pick one or the other. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna retire the FLIR. And now that I got a new phone, I haven't tried to see if even they would attach
Hmm.
because of they change adapters.
Okay. Yeah. 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 I used to have one of those Seeks with a little Seek one that you would attach to your iPhone. But yeah, now they got the port changed on this. So, but I do need to give you a legit FLIR.
And,
That
and talking about bridges is I was in Arlington one night in the summer of Texas, which you know what that means. And we came off of the bridge. If I got my timeline right for that night, it's been like 4 years since we or 5 years since we did this. But it was so cool because I don't know that it's paranormal, but we all sat down in one of these little sitting areas and someone shined their light on us, and imagine like your arm is here, you could literally see the bands of heat coming off of us like we were on fire almost.
Hmm.
And it
Yeah.
was like so cool to watch it. We're like sitting there for like a couple minutes cooling off and going, look at the steam just rising off of our bodies.
Yeah. Hmm. That's pretty cool. Yeah. I've never seen that. The weirdest thing I've ever seen was a friend of mine cut down a tree we were camping, a small tree, maybe, 8, 9, 10 inches around diameter. He cut it down. And at night, that stump was just lit up, bright red. It was
Really?
like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I might have that video somewhere. And I was like, was that a freaking head sticking out from? Because it was kind of like on a little slope. And I was like, is that a head? Something sticking his head over that little slope there to see us? And then we figured it out that it was just that stump. Yeah, yeah, that was the craziest thing. Yeah, I might have
Yeah.
that video somewhere. I'm gonna look for it. If I find it, I'll send it to you.
Well, it's interesting because they say nature has energy.
Yeah,
Everything has energy. So it's interesting, though, to see the stump
hmm,
generating heat.
yeah,
And, one could say, well, if he recently cut the tree down, it could be the heat from the chainsaw going through
yeah.
or
It,
however
it,
he did it.
yeah,
But
it had been there all day, and then this was
yeah,
like late at night. Yeah, it was several hours had passed.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's interesting. And I remember, and it's kind of funny how my mind works as it jumbles, is when I was last on afterwards, we were talking, you know, behind the stage, kind of chilling out a little bit, the after party kind of thing of
yeah,
podcasting. And you were like, you had UFO experiences. I was like, yeah. And you're like, man, I want to get you back on to talk about that.
yeah,
So I was like, yeah, I don't know why that just popped in my head.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Well, shoot. Let's talk about it. What happened with your experiences?
So, like, three of them were kind of like, the usual, like everybody says, I was driving along and this light was following me. It's always in the same spot. If I stopped, it stopped. And when you would get out, then you'd be like noticing it. And then you'd get back in your car and you'd look up and it's gone. It's like just wanting to make itself known. Or if you're like, oh, let me get a picture of that, disappears. And
Right.
so it's like, yeah, okay. But one night I was walking out of my parents' front yard and I was looking up and there was maybe two clouds in the sky, and one was really big, and it's like you can't see the stars or anything really, but there was just a few clouds. You know how Texas nights are sometimes. It's like strange. But all of a suddenly behind this cloud, I started seeing like red and yellow flashes like periodically. And it wouldn't be like the ball lightning where the whole cloud lit up. It would
Mhm.
just be one spot.
Hmm.
And I was like, in my mind goes, that looks like maybe like laser hit something, like an impact.
Right.
And so I started going, well, there's two different colors. They're on opposing sides, sometimes in the middle. I'm like, what could do this? And I was like, in my mind goes, well, the only thing that could happen, because there's no sound, I don't hear the impacts, it's all purely visible, and I only know it because something said to look up. It's got to be a UFO battle.
Hmm.
And that's the only thing that would make sense in my mind because I was like, it's not our planes because, one, why would there be a plane battle over Texas? And nobody's talking about this on the news, hidden behind one cloud, and nobody can see the jets. I was like, so rule out our military.
Hmm.
And yeah, and it was such an amazing experience. And I was like, I walked back inside. I was like, can I go to my mom and dad? I was like, do you guys want to see a UFO battle? And my mom goes, yeah. And my dad's like, It's hot out. You guys just tell me what's going on. I was like, all right. And so we walked out and she looked up and she saw it too. And it was like a really cool moment to go, yeah. And then I realized, like 3 minutes into her being there, I'm like, I look down from where this battle's taking place. And I'm like, it looks like this battle's taking place over my house. And so I'm like, man, if there's some wreckage, there better be some visible when I get home so I can take it inside. But no, there wasn't any. And it got me thinking too of, when we see like science fiction movies and all of that with UFO battles, how when one UFO destroys another, how it just disintegrates in space. And I was like, I wonder if that's really real or why we never see debris from UFO battles because I'm sure they've happened in our space.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they probably get burned up in the atmosphere, if they fall
Yeah.
to Earth. Yeah.
But even still, you would see the track of something. And I was like, yeah, it was like there was just these bright flashes and then it just stopped.
Hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And how long ago was this? You said?
I'd say this was, let's see, being in 2024, I'd say 4 years ago, maybe,
Okay. Hmm. All right.
or 5 years, maybe even six. It's wow. Yeah, I think maybe closer to six, which means I've been in. Wow, it's 2024. Yeah, my brain needs to wake up. So I've been investigating since 2019. So
Okay.
a lot longer than I thought.
Hmm. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, but the other one, the UFO encounter I had that got a little controversial on Facebook because I posted a picture was so my job at the time was fundraising and going to places and trying to raise funds for something. Well, I was there all night and nothing, really happening in this storefront near a highway. And I'm getting ready to pack up my stuff. It's like almost probably 9, 10 o'clock at night. So it's pitch black. It's like that dusk moment where there's still a little bit of color from the sun, but it's mainly dark. And I look up and I see this black object just sitting there. And it's like I can see light poles, there's a few trees, and above that. And so I'm like, okay. So I make a visual, picture of where everything is. I go, all right, I'm going to pack my stuff up, call it a night. They'd said to go back to the office. So I start breaking everything down, go inside, and I tell the people, thank you for allowing me to stand out here, do my thing. And I'm going to call it a night, have a great night. Walk outside. The object is in this same exact spot, has not moved. And my first thought is, well, it could be a plane in hover mode waiting, for something. But then I was like, there's no airports around here. So this plane hovering, even if it was hovering waiting, it goes in a circle pattern. It doesn't sit in one spot
Hmm.
waiting for clearance.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so then I was like, and it didn't look like a military plane. And then I was like, well, I don't hear it either. But then I was like, well, there is a lot of traffic on the highway. But then I was like, but you still hear planes over the highway noise. So I was like, I'm sitting there slowly like debunking all my little like thoughts of what am I looking at here. And so I go to my car and I'm putting my gear away and I look up and it's still in the same spot. So I'm like, all right, if you want me to, share this experience, I'm getting my cell phone out, stay where you are. Let me take a picture. So I took a couple pictures And in the two pictures, you can see it sitting there. And when you zoom in, it looks like just little black matrix cubes.
Huh.
And I'm like, yeah, even that far away, our planes, it would make out kind of the shape of a plane. It wouldn't look like a long rectangular thing with a square sticking up. And so I was like, it's definitely not a helicopter then, because I don't see any blades on the top. So
Huh.
yeah, I got in my car and I was like, that's definitely a UFO. I definitely just saw a UFO tonight. How weird and cool is that?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Did you get a decent picture of it?
Not so much that I could make, that you could see. It just looks like a black dot in the
Okay.
distance
Yeah.
on the screen. And one of my friends at the time messaged me why I said it got controversial. He's like, well, did you check the FAA flight logs to make sure there was no plane there? And I was like, dude, what part of it was in the same spot for at least 5-10 minutes makes you think the FAA records are going to say, yeah, there was a 747 there
Parked.
waiting to taxi in? That's like, and why would they give me flight records? I'm like, they don't just hand those out to anybody.
Yeah, that's one reason why I'm really careful about putting anything out there on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I don't mind people being critical, I don't. But it's a
Yeah.
lot of the people that are just mean spirited.
Yeah, I was at Parapalooza and somebody asked me about putting evidence on Facebook or social media, how that works. And I go, I learned my lesson well.
Mhm.
What you do is you either go, this is what I think it is. What do you all think?
Mhm.
Or, hey, what do you think this is? And post it. And then you get people answering their thoughts. And even if you say what you think it is, they all post their thoughts. Nobody attacks your thought because it's like, and I was like, my theory on that was, yeah, nobody wants to be that guy that writes on there, this is nothing, you're full of crap, or this is fake.
Mhm.
Well, you got like 20 comments saying, yeah, it really does look like what you think it looks like. I could totally see it and be like, yeah, the one guy that's going to be the naysayer, and everybody publicly goes after him. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, everybody tends to be more positive when you ask it in the form of a question to
Right.
them.
Yeah, and it's like if you come at it in the right way, nobody should be able to get mad at you, or no one should be able to get their
Mm.
feelings hurt. Um,
But definitely don't ever post something up that goes, hey, this is 100% an orb. And
yeah.
then expect everyone's going to go, yes, that's an orb. You're right.
You
Then
know,
we'll get somebody that says, that looks more like a lens flare or dust to me.
in the Bigfoot world, it's crazy. I mean, someone posted a picture of trees and there's a dark spot. Everyone sees a Bigfoot. Everyone sees the Bigfoot, and I can put on there it's a shadow or it's a branch, it's dead leaves, whatever, and then people get mad. But
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, man, the Bigfoot world is crazy. It's
I have a theory about the Bigfoot world and the Bigfoots themselves being the cryptids, is I feel like they're not really as much cryptid as by definition. I feel like they're more like dimensional beings. And the reason the pictures, in my opinion, come out so blurry and everything is, what if they're coming in from a portal, about to exit through a portal? That's why you don't see them for long here. And if you look at when you have energy of a portal with energy to a portal, everything in the middle is blurred because of all the energy in between. And I'm like, could that be the reason why we can't get a crisp 100% clear picture of a Bigfoot? Is because we always catch them in between entering and exiting where they're going.
Well, I would agree with that, except everything in the picture is blurry, not just the Bigfoot. I've never seen a blurry picture of a Bigfoot and everything around it is crisp and clean. The whole picture has always been blurry. And
Yeah.
if not blurry, then it's been zoomed in so much that it's pixelated so bad. I've actually seen some pretty good pictures that people have taken and sent to me. Uh, People here in Texas have sent me some really cool looking pictures, man. Some crazy looking pictures that are pretty sharp. You
Yeah.
know, um,
Well, the thing
eh,
that too that people don't realize is they're like, well, I've seen Sasquatch, but I haven't seen a Bigfoot. I'm like, yeah, you have.
mhm,
I'm like, Sasquatch and Bigfoot pretty much are the same thing. It just depends on what region you're in,
yeah, yeah,
or Yeti, or whatever they call it in
the
Russia.
Yowie, yeah,
It's like, I feel like we're just, you got to take cultural terms into context and look at it and going, yeah, these are not isolated to one area. And what
right,
really opened my mind and eyes to that thought was I was on an interview with my friend in the UK, Andy Decodes, and somebody chimed in and goes, "Oh, you're from Texas, so you know about the dog man." I'm like, "The what? I'd never heard of this." I said, "I need to look this up. What are you talking about?" And so I did a video where I laid out all the research that I did on Dogman and trying to answer, what is Dogman and everything. And I could not tell you what time of day you'll see a Dogman,
mhm,
what climate you'll see a Dogman, or what area you'll see a Dogman because they are out in the morning, they're out in the afternoon, they're out at night, they're out in the heat of the summer, they're out in the cold of the winter.
right,
They're in Canada, United States, Europe, Australia. It's like I could not find a single thing that I would sit there and go, yes, if I wanted to see this cryptid, this is where I got to go. This is the time period. It
mhm,
was all so random. And that's when I was like, this has got to be real because
mhm,
I don't think when we say, oh, there's a cryptid that's only in this area, I don't think that's a cryptid.
mhm.
I think that's just a misidentified natural, probably animal that's very rare and rarely seen.
Okay.
And
So
like
you,
dire wolves, they say, oh, they're extinct, but they seem to be finding evidence of one in Utah.
mhm,
And so it's like, maybe because we don't see them as often, we feel they're extinct. And so when you see the appearance of one, you're going to be like, that's a cryptid.
yeah.
And it's not.
So so do you think that they don't walk on 2 feet?
I think they can.
Okay.
I
Because there are
mean,
plenty of stories of these things running on 2 feet, like alongside of people's vehicles and cars, and even like there was a guy in a side by side. You know, I can't remember. I think he was in upstate New York, as a matter of fact, and they ran along there. His buggy and actually grabbed it and slowed it down. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, because we think, you know, we know animals and everything, but I mean, look at the bear. A bear walks on all four or can walk on two legs.
Mhm,
Wolves, they walk on all four, but if they're going after something, they have a habit of, if they're too far away, they will for a little bit be on two legs and lunge on.
mhm,
Dogs can walk on two legs for a little bit. So why would we think this creature couldn't walk on two legs?
mhm.
I'm like, that's one of the things that I'm like, well, we can't be a dog man, because dogs don't walk on two legs. I'm like, yeah, they do. They just can't do it as far, but they could if they wanted to.
Well, these creatures seem to be able to do it whenever they want to and do it for a pretty long time.
Yeah.
Sometimes a lot of the encounters are exclusively on two legs. Um,
But that's what I mean is, we all
and same
have
with Bigfoot. The
preconceived
same with Bigfoot.
ideas of,
They've been seen on all fours also.
yeah, comparing them to animals and going, well, these animals can't do it. I'm like, well, they can. Just because you don't see them do it doesn't mean they can't.
Right.
And one thing that really you'll love this is I was interviewing a guest in the Columbia River Gorge, I believe, is the
Mhm.
one up in Oregon,
Right.
Washington State.
Hmm.
And he has a place there. And part of his business is people come in and tell him stories of what paranormal experiences or what they've encountered there. And they have a lot of cryptids there. But here's the twist of it. There was an article actually published in the newspaper during World War II that said, hey, the Department of Energy is working on creating these super soldier animals. And they've been messing with the crocodile. So if you see an extremely large crocodile that can walk on two legs or, is in your area, do not approach it. That is one of our test subjects that escaped. And I was like,
Really?
wait a minute, the government admitted to taking animals and trying to enhance them?
Hmm.
And he was like, yeah. And then he goes, well, here's why. There's nuclear material near that gorge that dolphins can't protect because they're not adaptable to that water. They need to be in the salt water, I think it is, and that was fresh water.
Hmm.
And dolphins are used by the military to tag boats or to defend the area because they'll, you know, push people to the surface, and then the guards at the surface are like, "Hey," and arrest the person. And they're like, this is Cold War, Nazi
Hmm.
period, talking about this and going, wow, so how many of the cryptids could be government experiments
Hmm.
that were accidentally
Yeah.
released?
Yeah, but Bigfoot and
Well, I'm not saying Bigfoot
government have
is,
been
but
seen for a long time. But and you make an interesting point with that story though too, because it does make you think. You know, how long has the government actually been involved in this, and what else have they created?
right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like Dogman, I could see them creating a dog to
Man.
protect something, stand guard somewhere
Yeah.
and enhance
Um,
it and make it stronger. And what what the story was is there was a scientist who took this one fish and made it bigger and able to lay eggs, and its cycle of growth was faster so it could feed more people. And the government were like, hey, you think you could take and use that to create a creature that we could use to stand guard at certain places and keep this area secured from enemy spies and everything? And it's like, wow. So they totally took his totally good, positive project and forced it into something else. And it's like, yeah, that sounds just like what our government would do.
hmm, yeah, exactly. So we're kind of running up against the clock here, but I wanted to ask you something. What do you think about the rake?
The
Have you heard
rate.
of, yeah, the rake, the tall, skinny, slender man-looking thing, but they call it a rake, more like grayish white. Almost, and I think people call it a crawler also. Have you heard of that?
Oh, I've heard of the crawler.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Because I'm gonna be interviewing someone about what they saw, and this is gonna. So I'd just like to get your. I made a post in a couple of groups, but no one's even answered me. So maybe somebody else can answer it.
I feel like from the pictures that I've seen of where people like describe it, if Like it's the same kind of crawler where it's like skin tight to the
Right.
bone, can walk on fours or hang
Mhm.
from ceilings, can pretty much walk anywhere, up ceiling, up walls. And so by looking at that, I can't help but looking at it from the perspective of it looks like something that could come out of the shadow realms of
Okay.
the ethereal and pass into our world. And what I feel like the difference of it is when it's in, so like when you're on the ethereal and astral plane, or like that, everything is energy. When you come into a three-dimensional world where everybody sees everything in three dimensions, what happens is you have to put on kind of like a suit to be here, to be in this atmosphere and everything. And so I kind of can't help wondering if those are like kind of like suits that they wear to be in our space, and they just happen, to look the way they look. And
Mm.
it's like it looks really creepy, and it would create a lot of fear. And what's interesting about that aspect is a lot of the beings that are from the shadow realm need fear to exist. They feed on that emotion. And we are a world, I hate to say it, but we are prone to give off a buttload of fear energy real easy. I mean, you can put a spider on a floor and you will get a lot of people afraid of that spider.
Right. Yeah. You can
And
pretend to have a spider.
I
Mm.
mean, or a snake, or, create a sound out of thin air. And,
Right.
people are
Right.
like, oh my God, go into panic mode. And
Mm.
so I feel like they've learned to, when they need to feed, create that persona. And the sad reality too is, as adults, we can process it out. We'll be like, oh my God. But then we'll quickly go, wait a minute. Did I see what I thought I saw?
Mm.
And we'll start to rationalize, and we may get out of the fear, or we may stay in the fear. But children and teenagers, you see that, and they are just nonstop fear. They're running to get somebody. They don't have the ability to snap out of the fear and start trying to figure out, what am I looking at?
Mhm.
And so I feel like that's why the crawlers and the rake, if it's the same thing, would appear more to children
Mhm.
than the adults, is because of needing that emotional food source.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Well, cool, Michael. You have anything else you want to add? Anything you want to say where people can find you at? Promote
So
your podcast again too.
yes, you can find me on Facebook at Michael Newkopf. You can find me on LinkedIn under Michael Kopf. I'm on Instagram. I don't remember my handle at the moment, but I believe I sent you my link tree. So that has all the links to find me in it.
Mhm.
And if I didn't, I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
So,
send it to me because I don't remember seeing it. Send it to me again, and I'll add it to the description.
and podcast shows, you can see me Tuesday nights on my paranormal show, The Energy That Surrounds Us, 9 o'clock Central Time. And 3 Wednesdays a month, you can see me on Writing Through the Unknown if you want to delve into the hidden history and hidden knowledge being exposed, and different topics that's out there that we don't hear about or talk about. And that's at 8 o'clock usually. And Thursdays, 3 times a month, starting back up in October, we're hoping, is Paranormal Versus with Kel, Matt, and I. And we're going to be bringing more episodes and some new guests and new content. And as I'm sure Joe is well aware of, that's getting harder and harder to do now, is coming up with new content for every episode. So
Right.
we do our best for y'all. And if we end up having multiple guests for similar topics, it's not because we're fascinated by that topic, but because everybody has a different twist to it. So we're
Yeah.
still trying to bring new through old material.
You know, I actually do a lot of paranormal investigators on here, and everyone's got a different take. Everyone's got a different twist to their investigation style, different experiences, and I think it just helps out a lot of people. You talk, even like I said, I bet I got 221 episodes. I bet half of them are paranormal people at the very least. Maybe even more than that.
Yeah,
Um,
and one thing I'd like to say too, if I can, is everybody grew up thinking paranormal from watching the shows and everything deals with ghost hunting or spirits or cryptids. And I figured out by writing an article that I submitted to an online magazine or newsletter that was published, was because everybody was asking me, what is paranormal? What do you mean by paranormal? So I went through and I wrote like maybe 5 to 10 pages on what is paranormal. And the bottom line that was like the aha moment for me in my show was anything that is unexplained falls in the paranormal definition. And so it was like my mind went boom, going, it's not just ghosts, it's not just spirits, it's not just UFOs, it's not just cryptids, it's any experience you've had in your life you can't explain is a paranormal experience. And so I was like, man, the floodgates in my mind just started opening up and going, I can talk about these topics now because they're still under the purview of the show.
yeah, yeah, cool, man. Now, real quick before we get off the air, I just wanted to tell everyone, to remind everyone that if you like REM pods and spirit boxes, go to Steffi's Creation on Etsy. I don't get paid. She doesn't sponsor me. She just makes really good equipment. She's always been there if I needed help with her stuff. So go check her out. She's Steffi's Creations on Etsy. Her link is in the description to this show. I've got two of her REM pods back here. Really good equipment. I really like it and enjoy it. And then also go to Layered Legends. His link is in my description. Also, he makes 3D projects and stuff, 3D printing, some crazy, crazy good stuff too. So go check him out. And again, he doesn't sponsor me, he doesn't pay me. Just two really good people that I really want to kind of put out there. I think you'll like their products. And yeah, that's really about it. I got a show actually on Thursday night. It's a rare time that I do a show in the middle of the week, so check me out Thursday night. I can't remember who I have on. I never remember who I have on. You guys know that. Yeah, I talk to so many people. Like I got it.
Oh,
Like I told you, I've got two interviews this weekend. One of them will be dealing with the rake. The other one's dealing with Bigfoot. And it's funny enough, they're both in Michigan. So
there
so
you go.
cool. And yeah, they will be on the Woodline Encounters segment. So yeah, one of them will be out for sure Sunday night. I think that will be the rake or the crawler episode. I haven't figured out a name for that show yet, but I'll figure it out. And hey, where are you located at? You're here in Texas? Did I know that?
I am out of the Dallas, Texas metroplex.
Okay.
So
I
I'm in
seem to
that
remember
area.
that now. Yeah, because it's like this is the second time you're on the show. I seem to remember that now. Um, dude, we need to get together, man, and go up to the Goatman's Bridge. I'd love to go visit that with you, man, and hang out. You know.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
since I had the time while you were talking about your future, I just put in the private chat my link tree.
Okay. Yeah, but it keeps making me try to go there. I don't want to go there. Copy link address. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna put it
I
in
was
the
like,
comments for this little.
I was gonna say I could put it in the chat room, but I was
Oh,
like,
it's
I
not
don't see
letting
a
me.
place to put it in the chat.
It's not letting me. So anyway, so I'll copy it anyway. What I'll do is I'll copy it, and then I'll just add it in the description to the show. It won't take but 2 seconds to do that. So
Yeah, but I appreciate you having me back
yeah,
on,
man.
and
Yeah, for sure, dude. Yeah, we got to get together for real, man, and go do some investigation somewhere.
yeah, whenever I'm in your area or you're up here, let's make that happen.
Yeah, cool, man. Cool. Well, cool beans, dude. Thanks a lot for doing the show. Everyone else, like I said, thanks a lot. There goes my mom. She says hello, so say hello to my mom.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Hang on real quick. Everyone else, I'll see you Thursday night. Check out the show Thursday night. Have a good night.